battlers, you know what it is. JayDevin back at it with another video. As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome, subscribe if you feel my vibe, and power up, punch the notification bell for all the PvP content. As promised, for today's video, it is something very special. It is officially now the beginning of August. We have a lot going on with the Mirror Cup. So if you are new to the PvP scene, or even if you're just new to the arena scene and you were not playing during the Boulder Cup and you don't know what the meta is, then this video is for you. You are in the right place. I put together a couple of graphics that you can put to use, and I will do my best to make sure they are very easy to access. After this video uploads, I will be posting both of these graphics that I created on the Silph Arena subreddit as well as the Go Stadium Discord, and I will also tweet it out. If you're not on Twitter for PvP, what are you doing? Get on Twitter now. So for this Mirror Cup, Boulder Cup 2.0, let's get right into the graphic that I put together. There it is. Yes, it is pretty much the same thing as all the other Boulder Cup 2.0 meta graphics, but mine is like the limited edition holographic. So the big bad boss of the Boulder Cup 2.0 is still Medicham. Yes, Medicham. That did not change. Medicham is still very, very strong. It is still a huge force to consider, and it can have good, if not overwhelming, matchups against almost the entire meta. Depending on the situation you find yourself in, Medicham can win against everything. So if you are going to be doing a Boulder Cup 2.0, make sure that you practice. PvPoke just dropped an amazing new resource. I strongly encourage you to check that out and to take advantage of it if you already have not. You can find that at pvpoke.com/train. Again, that's pvpoke.com/train. What counters Medicham? Or I guess the better way to put it is what can counter Medicham? Bronzong, Skarmory, and Jirachi can all have fairly good matchups for the most part against Medicham. They're going to be strong picks overall for the meta, but also to potentially be used as Medicham counter. For Bronzong, you are going to want Confusion, Size Shock, and then either Bulldoze or Flash Cannon for the Boulder Cup meta. I think both can be viable. For the most part, with this meta, you might want Flash Cannon. For Jirachi, Confusion, Doom Desire, as well as Psychic. Now, not everybody has a Jirachi. It's not something you have to worry about. Again, I made a video on Jirachi. It's not insanely overwhelming. There are things that can beat Jirachi. Jirachi is not overpowered. But also Skarm. Yes, Skarm, the good old Skarm farm, is very strong in this meta as well. You're going to want Air Slash, Sky Attack, as well as Flash Cannon. You don't necessarily need a second move for Skarmory for this Boulder Cup 2.0. You do not need to have Flash Cannon. Do you want Flash Cannon? Yes, it can be very helpful. It can help it win other matchups. Now, what can counter Medicham very well? Well, as you can see, basically in the middle of this graph that I put together is Gallade. Yes, Gallade. We have Community Day literally tomorrow, literally around the corner. Depending on where you're at in the world, you may have already had your Community Day. Synchro Noise with a Gallade. It's not necessarily overwhelming. It's not overpowered. Does not really change up this Boulder Cup 2.0. I personally still recommend that you run Confusion, Leaf Blade, as well as Close Combat. Gallade, if you didn't know, I do like to call him the ninja of the Boulder Cup 2.0. The confusion damage going against Medicham being super effective. With Gallade's attack stat, it is considerable. He's very strong. He's a very, very strong counter against Medicham. While Leaf Blade, as you can see, can give him a positive matchup against Swampert. Leaf Blade, if unshielded, can delete Swampert all the way. Just delete it. Wipe it off the face of the earth. And for additional coverage, I still do recommend that you have Close Combat because of the matchups considering Bastiodon/Probopass, but also against the other Medicham counters. Synchro Noise being a Psychic type attack is not going to be super effective against those three that are also pointing to Medicham. Why? Because they are all part Steel typing. You're going to want Close Combat for coverage. Now up to the top of the graph, it's obvious Medicham will completely delete Probopass as well as Bastiodon. Swampert down in the left corner can fare well against most of this meta as well. He is very well rounded. He can be a strong pick. He's going to deal neutral damage against all of the Steel Medicham counters, neutral damage against Gallade, super effective damage against Probopass and Bastiodon, but he gets deleted by a Razor Leaf Torterra. Torterra will be bad news. If you run into a Torterra with a Swampert, that's not good. That's going to be GG's. Speaking of Torterra, do not be afraid to bring a Torterra. Why? Because Swampert might end up being very, very common for this Boulder Cup 2.0 meta, considering his positive neutral damage and matchups against the meta as a whole. And with the combination of Mudshot and Hydro Cannon, how quickly he can put out damage, it's insane. That's what makes Torterra actually very viable this time around for the Boulder Cup. For Torterra, the moveset you are going to want, at least the moveset I recommend, is going to be Razor Leaf, Stone Edge, as well as Earthquake. Razor Leaf charges everything very, very slow. He's not going to be quick. He is a turtle. He's slow, but he can delete the Swampert, and he can still have a considerable matchup against Gallade, against Probopass, against Bastiodon, and possibly even against a Medicham, depending on where that Medicham's health is at. If it's very low, the Razor Leaf damage coming quick can be very scary for that Medicham. So for the most part, it is a pretty simple meta. It's pretty simple to understand, and I hope you take advantage of this metagraph that I made. It is yours. I made it for you. Now on to my favorite part of this Boulder Cup 2.0 video. I did make a meta moves graph specifically dedicated for the Boulder Cup 2.0, and here it is. Yes, this is the Meta Moves Boulder 2.0. Now you can see there's a lot going on. This graph, this metagraph and everything, it's a lot to look at. Do not be intimidated by this graphic. It might look a little complicated, but I promise you it's actually very simple. So if you're wondering what in the world you're looking at, let me explain. If you look in the top right corner of each Pokemon's card for this graphic, you will see the fast move that they are using. For example, look up at the top left. You're going to see Counter on the Medicham card. That identifies its fast move, Bastiodon, Smackdown, etc. Now with the move icons, again, let's go back to Medicham. You can see Counter. In the two typing icons, you can see Power Up Punch as well as Ice Punch, okay? What do the numbers mean? Literally, all that means is how many counters it takes to get to that move. Yes, this is a guide, almost kind of a flashcard or a reminder of how many of its fast moves that Pokemon will take to get to that charge move, assuming it's using that fast move. Knowing small details like this has helped me so much in battle because it helps me avoid wasting shields if my opponent is trying to use some cheese and they're trying to shield bait me. So with Medicham, you can see if they use only 5 counters, if they don't have 6 and they're getting off a charge move, you're going to know it is not Ice Punch. There's no way. They've only done 5 counters. It's only going to be Power Up Punch. For Jirachi, okay, if you see only 4 confusions go off, you know it's not going to be Psychic. It's going to be Doom Desire. And if you notice, there are 3 confusion users in this graphic, right? There is Bronzong, there is Jirachi, and there's also Gallade. One thing that's very notable about the confusion users is Gallade in particular. I think he's going to be very common in Boulder Cup 2.0 tournaments because it only takes 3 confusions to get to Leaf Blade. You need at least 5 to get to close combat. So if they only have gotten off 3 confusions, maybe even 4 confusions, that's not going to be enough energy for them to have access to use a close combat. Could help you determine whether to shield or whether not to shield, which could give you a huge advantage and end up giving you the victory. Now, something tricky that you can see is the 2 anti-Scarm picks, Bastiodon as well as Probopass. It takes them the same amount of fast moves to access both of their optimal charge moves. With Bastiodon running Smackdown, it's only going to take 7 Smackdowns to get to Stone Edge and 7 Smackdowns to get to Flamethrower. With Probopass, assuming they have Spark, it is going to take 6 to get to Magnet Bomb and 6 to get to Rock Slide. So both of those might be a little difficult to predict or to read. Now, if you're wondering why I don't have more Pokemon included in this Meta Moves Boulder 2.0 or why I don't have multiple of these graphs, the reason is simple. I wanted to include the Pokemon that are new. If you would like to know with other Pokemon that are considerable for the Boulder Cup 2.0, how many of their fast moves it takes to access whatever charge move you think your opponent might have, you can also find that on pvpoke.com. So before I end this Boulder Cup 2.0 video, I did want to go over the wild cards that are included in the metagraph that I put together for you. Lucario, Claydol, as well as Steelix. What roles do they play and what roles could they play, right? Lucario will only take neutral damage from confusion users. He will also only be taking neutral damage from flying type attacks such as Skarmory. He does still take super effective from Medicham, so Medicham is still a very huge threat to Lucario. But if you are a super skilled battler and you play the match right, you might be able to take the game if you have Shadow Ball as an additional move on your Lucario. The move set you would want is Counter, Power Up Punch, and then Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is a ghost type move. It's a very, very strong move in PvP, and it can potentially one-shot the Medicham for the win. Claydol. Claydol can be very interesting as a wild card for the Boulder Cup 2.0 because of its movesets now that it has access to. You can either use it as a confusion user or as a pure ground type attacker, but you have to be very careful with Claydol because he is psychic and ground typing, so he will take super effective damage from the Hydro Cannon Swampert, which is a water type attack, as well as the Razor Leaf Torterra, which is a grass type attack. But if you're sneaky enough and cheesy enough and you get away with it, if you have it as a Mud Slap Claydol, that will deal 256% damage per Mud Slap to both Bastiodon as well as Probopass, but he will only be the regular super effective against Jirachi and also against Bronzong. You could run Mud Slap, Earth Power, Gyro Ball, Earthquake. He has potential. As a confusion user, this is why I left him as a wild card, because there's just better confusion users as options, right? Bronzong, I think, is going to be the most realistic option for most people as a confusion user. If you don't have Bronzong, you definitely will have Gallade for this Boulder Cup 2.0 after Community Day. So again, for Claydol, do I recommend that you use him as a main pick or on your main team of 3 or 6? No, absolutely not. He's a wild card. The third and final wild card that I included in this graph is Steelix. Why is Steelix a wild card? He can have very good matchups against Skarmory. He can do great against Jirachi. He can do great against Bronzong. That's true. And if he gets on an Earthquake, it can be very huge against pretty much everything aside from Skarmory. The problem with Steelix in this Boulder Cup 2.0, Dragon Tail, Crunch, and then Earthquake. Dragon Tail will be resisted by all 5 Steel type Pokemon in this graph. Crunch is only going to be super effective to 2 of them, and Earthquake is only super effective to 4. So I mean, he has utility. He's not entirely useless. He could potentially come in clutch. There are 2 main problems for Steelix: Hydro Cannon Swampert as well as Medicham. Gallade could even be a huge problem for Steelix. So, is he a main pick? Should you include him? No. He's a wild card. There's just better options. I really hope you found this video useful, and I hope you can put those graphics to good use as well. Again, I will be tweeting those graphics, posting them on Discord, as well as posting them on the Silph Arena subreddit. I will do my best to make sure everybody's going to have access to those graphics if you need them. A lot of battlers may not need them at all, but I know there are some who will find them useful. If you did enjoy, subscribe if you feel my vibe, and power up punch the notification bell for all the PvP content. That is it for this Boulder Cup 2.0 video. We'll see you in live streams this weekend. I hope you have an amazing and successful community day, but most importantly, have a freaking